Some things you just never forget, especially if you're owned by a cat. It was a cold Christmas Eve back in 1977. I was walking home in Manhattan, and in the windows all around me I could see the decorated trees and the colorful holiday lights. It was a magical time of the year in New York City. Snow was beginning to blanket the sidewalk, and suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw some movement in the alleyway beside me. It was definitely a cat. He was thin, he was wet and cold, and boy was he dirty. I couldn't even tell what color he was. I could see a cut on his mouth, and by the way he moved, I could tell he was having a problem with his hip. I knew in my heart that he must have been cold and in pain and very hungry. Then, that unforgettable moment when a cat takes ownership of a human. This little guy lifted a paw and began to groom himself. I knew then that I had not only a Christmas cat, but a forever friend, a lifelong companion who would change my life forever. On Christmas Eve, 1977, a love story began.
here from Wildlife Tree, and it's our mission to teach kids and teach people about animals and wildlife and how to be involved without maybe encroaching on it, and how to take care of their pets properly, how to live in harmony with animals, with nature.
You know, as Jenny says, is that we go out and do wildlife education. So the big focus is education in the wildlife industry. So we go and do assemblies, we go and do birthday parties, you know, any way we can to get the word out. And really it's about coaching people on being accountable for animals and how to really build relationships, and really great opportunity for people to see animals live.
My whole life is about animals, so everything that I can remember has been enriched by animals. Without animals, I don't even know what I would do on a daily basis. They make everything better. They make, you know, you can talk to them and you can not have anyone else giving you advice when you don't want it, and they're amazing. You bond with them in a completely different way, and that's what's neat about all the different types of animals, all the different types of pets, is they all bond differently, and finding the one type of animal that works out well for you and for your lifestyle, it's really special. There's been a lot of budget cuts in schools, and the kids aren't getting the same experiences that you know, we got growing up, and so I think it's really important that we keep the education out there for them, whether it be your public library or, you know, your individual classroom or anything really. We just need to make sure they know what's out there and what's not going to be there if we continue the way we're going.
I'm Jeannie Gonzalez, and we started the rescue 2 years ago. We just had our 2nd year anniversary open house. It was awesome. It all started with, I wanted to purchase a horse for my children once we got the property, and came across a horse that was on Craigslist that was not being kept in pleasant conditions at all. You know, dirty water, she was thin. It was a sand pit, and I thought how sad this was that this horse was there and just didn't have any grass underneath her. Like, that's what they need, you know. I went to, my husband and I went to Rollins College and took a course in exactly what it would entail to start a 501c3, you know, what you had to do to become a nonprofit, was it even a reality, and it was. Lo and behold, I had some very generous people behind me that helped me with the fees, and we started it. And up to date, we've had approximately 70 horses come through our gates in 2 years.
My name's Jeff. Been coming out here for the last 2 years, pretty much since Jeannie opened the place. As much for the horses as for myself, as far as my life situations similar to the horses of just misery, and it's wonderful the feeling I get to help the horses as much as they help me, and some peace and tranquility, and to see how far along they progress when some of them come in so emaciated and just so abused and neglected, and months later to see the hard work and the dedication that everybody, all the volunteers put into it, is just amazing. It's very uplifting, very, very uplifting. And of course, you know, the gratification you get out of doing something and not getting anything in return but unconditional love. They're such beautiful creatures, and it's just amazing that people can neglect them.
kids. Oh my God, the kids coming out are amazing. They're not on computers. That's awesome, you know. They want to come out here. It's not a riding camp. They don't get to ride. You know, that's something and they still want to come out here. They still want to sweat. It's hot, it's muddy, it stinks, and they just enjoy it, and they're happy when a horse finds a new home. They like interacting with like a horse that we have right now that has been abused, and she's very fearful of humans, and they have that good soul in them that helps the horse come out and just get to where she's got to go, so we can place her eventually.
I'm a volunteer and I love horses. I've always loved them since I was 3. My papa's a process server, and he went and he processed someone, and they were talking about horses, and the girl said that she got her horses from here, and that you can volunteer out here. So I heard about it and I came out here to volunteer. We brush them and we clean them. We muck out the stalls for them. We bathe them. We clean his hoofs, and we put this pink stuff on him so the flies don't get into his eyes and lay eggs and stuff, or no, mosquitoes or something. Or maybe it's the flies, but and then we put these nests over their heads so the flies can't get down to them. And we do all kinds of stuff out here. They're a lot of hard work, but they're so much fun.
That's it. I mean, we work really hard. I mean, obviously I want to help every horse. And when animal control writes us a letter, you know, you almost have to, it's almost playing God, and I hate to say that, but you got to go, which one can I take? Financially, what are we able to take care of? Obviously, you want to take care of all of them, but you have to make sure that you don't take something that you financially can't take care of, and then you hinder the ones that you are taking care of. So I get anxious. I'm sad, anxious, and then we all sit around and we come up with a game plan, and when we get to say, okay, we can take this one on, then we put a game plan to work, what this horse needs, we evaluate it. We never ride anyone when they first get here. They have to be here for a good few weeks, settle in. There's a lot to adjust to. There's different herds. It's not like taking her to a home where there's just 1 or 2 horses. But usually I'm anxious. If it's an abused horse, I'm angry. But I try very hard not to judge. You know, some people, you know, even though the horse was starving, some people feel they're doing the best that they possibly can do. They feel that in a few weeks it might get better. A few weeks turn into months. And so I've learned not to judge, but there are a few that that's pretty wicked, that you just want to get angry, but it doesn't do you any good. You know, the negative energy, it just permeates off you, and the horses feel that. So you got to come out here with a good frame of mind and focus on the horse. Horse comes first. That's our rule. Rule number 2 is look at rule number 1. That's it. The horses are first. That's it.
I have a large place, so I've got woods that surround my house, and I have very little lawn. So most everything is oriented toward the care of the animals to provide them a home. Other than food, you also need cover. Animals need a place to hide. They need a place to build their nest. They need nesting material. Maybe I'll talk about this. I get a resident in here about once a year, usually in springtime. I don't think I have any guests yet in this one here, but they'll be in here before the middle of the summer, and they'll have some babies in there, some eggs, and that will be their house while they want to live there. I had 3 nice watermelons one year, and I come out one morning. I kept watching the watermelons. They got bigger and bigger, and I come out one morning, and something had made a hole in the watermelon and scooped the inside out of the watermelon. It was obviously a raccoon, so there went my watermelon. But I have this this deal worked out with the wildlife. You know, if they will give me some, I will give them the rest. But I figured that if I planted in a raised bed, I could deter a lot of the wildlife. So now you see my vegetables are in a raised bed. They're less likely to climb up over in there and eat those. So I get a little bit more now. So that's the way I cope with the wildlife. Let's go over here. This is pet cemetery. This is my pet cemetery. St. Francis, the guardian of the animals, and I've got, let's see, 2 dogs, 4 cats, a squirrel, a bird, and a rabbit, all buried right here in this square. Now that anybody who has an animal that dies and they don't have any place to put them, they're welcome to bury them right here in my pet cemetery. That's what it's for. This is the newest addition of my family. This is Isabel. Izzy, yeah, Izzy. You're Izzy, right? Izzy is a rescue. As you can see, she's a boxer. And she's about somewhere, well, we say she's a year old. Vets say that she's somewhere between 10 and 12 months. And she was found wandering on her own without any kind of identification or a collar in Levy County, Florida. And a woman that runs an animal rescue center was driving along and saw her on the side of the road. And she wouldn't have lasted too long on the side of the road. Anyway, she was picked up and taken to the Starting Over Again Animal Rescue in Ocala, Florida. And that's where I adopted her at. Now when I got her, she was, and it was only a few weeks ago, she was skin and bones. Her ribs were sticking out, and she has a lot of small scars on her legs, which indicate that she probably was not in such a good shape as a young pup, and she was covered with fleas. Well, I took her to my vet and got a full examination and found out she was full of parasites, 3 different kinds. She had hookworms, she had whipworms, and then the worst part was that she tested positive for heartworms. So we immediately went into treatment for all of these things. We got rid of the fleas, and she's doing right well now. She's putting on a little bit of weight, but she's got a lot of puppy energy in her, and she's undergoing some obedience training now, so she learns to slow down and watch her manners a little bit.
childhood. I've always collected and tried to help people as well. Most of my life I've helped underprivileged people as well. My husband and I were voluntary animal cruelty investigators. And most of the time, a few times, cases went to court, but the animals are really low on the totem pole, so even bad cases today never get to court, and people are never punished for what they should be punished for. People like animals for different reasons. You talk to Lori, who gets support from animals. A lot of children love to come and have the unconditional love from an animal.
Florence and the dog specifically really changed my life. In 2008, at the age of 53, which is very rare, I had a stroke. And I was teaching high school, and the stroke affected my personality, and I didn't want to leave the house. I couldn't teach. My doctor didn't know what to do to get me out of the house, but she was very smart and she knew how much I loved animals. So she recommended that I go to Journey's End. And when I came to Journey's End, it was right after the stroke, so I was very kind of introverted, and I didn't have a good self-image of myself after the stroke. And I didn't have to worry about that because the animals didn't care. Florence didn't care. She'd just say, go do this. And I find after teaching for 25 years that I feel like I'm now doing what I'm supposed to be doing. That it's definitely a God thing. I'm here because this is where I'm supposed to be.
If you're around an animal enough, it's not just that you tie it out in the backyard and throw a bone and a bowl of water, if they're lucky. When you're around an animal enough, you get to understand that they have very, very different personalities. They also can converse with you. I can tell the behavior of my animals, what mood they're in. Without verbally hearing something, they can speak to you and you get to know the animal. And that's a real fun part of bringing an animal that's petrified, like Buck was, having been a bait dog, and to see him come in and trust us and love us. It's really a challenge, and it's great to see the end of that kind of a tale.
This is Raven, and she was born with rare kitten disease, and she can't feel anything from like the waist down.
He's gonna be mad that you couldn't know that this one can't. Oh, I'm gonna have to take a shot.
Right this way.
It was 5 kittens together. The one that I just showed you, these two are the sons. The black and white one there, and then that one. Hello, everybody. Hello. He's so loving. Yeah, I'm so loving. Very loving. He's another baby. So I'm another baby. And he lays there forever. I started volunteering through high school, graduated, kept volunteering, then I became a staff member. So I've been here for quite a while. Well, I always grew up with animals, all through life. So I wanted to become a veterinarian when I was younger. So I said I wanted to experience working with animals and being around the animals, all different kinds. So I found this place when we moved back to Deland, and I've been here ever since. Me and my sister started. She volunteered for 7 years, and then she moved away, and then I was here.
The staff, they're wonderful. They're really friendly, and like if you need help with something, they'll take their time out of their schedule and like make sure that you understand like how to do something correctly and not like just sit there and watch you like mess up. Cats, definitely.
Right?
What do you like about the cats? What do you think is more?
I guess like each one has like same thing with the dogs, but the cats each have a different personality, and they always want to be like loved. Like dogs, they'll jump on you, but then eventually they'll just like get tired of you petting them. The cats will always like want to be around you and jump on you and want to cuddle with you. And if they could, they would just get on your back and just walk with you. Yeah. The animals that I've always had, they've been like healthy. I've never actually, like I've seen on commercials where like the dogs are like injured and sick and they play the sad songs in the background, but I've never actually seen with my own eyes a sick or somewhat challenged animal. And when I first got here, I was really shocked by the fact that some of these animals are, you know, handicapped in their own way, and it definitely like changed my view of animals completely. I guess come to Journey's End if you ever have any free time, because the animals here are really in need of any kind of interaction with anyone, and they don't care who you are.
Right now, it's hard to turn some away because we're obligated to take care of what we have, and that's our main concern, financially and physically. Hope that it stays. When I die, we have a trust, and there are people who will come in and live. And we have an advisory board consisting of lawyers and CPAs and veterinarians, so everything will be pretty much controlled and will continue on without me. I tell everybody I'm going to be sitting on that branch out there watching everybody, so they better be careful.
My name's Rich Bartolo, and I became involved with Journey's End about a month ago when my second American Eskimo passed away. I had a male and a female named Zeus and Marshmallow, and she just died about a month ago, and I had some items around the house that a friend of mine decided that a good place to donate those would be Journey's End. So I went ahead and packed them all up, and I brought them over. And from there I saw a need to help volunteer, and so now I'm coming about once every week and taking the dogs for a ride and doing whatever else that Flo needs me to do around here. Eager to get in, are they? There you go. The dogs really enjoy getting out of the sanctuary and just going for a ride, and it's really rewarding for myself as well, because I'm used to having a couple of dogs to ride around with me during the day or on long trips, and so now that they're gone, this is a nice way of filling that void. Thank you. I think it's very important that we give back to our animals. I see a need for us to, as human beings, to get back to nature, and I believe the connection to the animal gives us one more step back into nature, and I believe very, very much in that. Bye.
City Council, City staff, and the citizens of Port Orange, we wish you a successful celebration. Thank you.
And joining them for the ribbon cutting, to do the ribbon cutting, is our Junior Humane Helpers, Heroes, Junior Humane Heroes.
My name is Caitlin.
My name is Erica. My name is Jansen. My name is Morgan.
And we are the Junior Humane Heroes.
We started our group last summer. We were at our house and we were thinking we wanted to start a club, and we thought what could be a really good cause for our club.
And we thought of all the poor, abused animals in the Humane Society, so we decided to try to help them.
So we started going around. We started really small, and we went around our neighborhood and we collected donations. We didn't get a lot, but it's still, everything counts.
And a couple of days ago, or weeks, we knocked on someone's door, and it was actually Stephanie, the one who runs the Drool.
She gave us her husband gave us her card. We emailed her, and she interviewed us, and she helped us out, and she invited us to this.
It's April Drool's Day.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Martin. I live in Port Orange, Florida, and this is my dog Jack. And Jack has been with me for about 3.5 years. Got him when he was very young. I actually have 3 boxers that I've adopted from the Coastal Boxer Rescue, a great organization in Florida. I also started a foundation about a year ago called The Drool, which is destined to be a nonprofit, and we advocate a lot of the area charities, local charities, Possibilities, Sophie Circle, and hope to bring exposure and enlightenment to their causes.
And the reason we wanted to start this club because we adopted our kitty Ginger 3 years ago, and while we were there, we saw it's like a very rundown shelter. They need a lot of help, and we saw Ginger, and all the animals looked so sad, and a couple of them had fur missing, and it was upsetting to see because we know they got abused, and they didn't ask to be brought into this world.
So we wanted to help them.
They don't have a voice, so we are their voice.
The first aid treatment demonstrated in this program is not a substitute for professional care. Your all-important partner in your dog's health and well-being is your veterinarian. Together, you and your veterinarian are the team that your dog depends on in a crisis.
Okay, so like I said before, this is not a medical course. This course is designed to give you the skills you need to care for your pet when something unexpected happens. And I know all of you see your pets as part of your family, otherwise you wouldn't be part of our family.
The primary function of my job is to make certain that the clients have everything that they need from the doctors, and that the doctors are fully informed and aware of what's going on with the patients in the hospital. It's more of almost a customer service type based position.
Got it.
Okay, so you want to put your hand right there to do your chest compressions. Your chest compressions should be 1/3 the diameter or the thickness of the dog. So on a dog like this, you're compressing about 1.5 to 2 inches. The further you can pass the bag into the nose, the easier it's going to be to reach. Now spread that out around his nose, over the mouth. You want to make sure that you get that all nice and straight up there.
My true desire when I was a little kid was to be a veterinarian. And I started working in veterinary hospitals when I was 14. So I've seen a lot of different things, but I found out early on that I hate school. And could not bring myself to 4 years of college and 4 more years of vet school. And my experience growing up, my father's an orthopedic surgeon, so I've been around medicine all my life. And I found very quickly, being a veterinary technician, that I got to care for the animals the way that I wanted to and fulfill that desire. But then I found something else, that I could care for the veterinarians. And going into management and running hospitals was my way to care for the animals and the doctors. And I've enjoyed every bit of it.
I got Don Pablo 7 years ago. He was 8 weeks old when I got him. Usually when I come home from work with DP, he and I will sit down and watch a little bit of TV together, and then we go for a walk, usually with his girlfriend Bella, the dog down the street. And then we usually come home and watch Big Bang together and have dinner. And then he goes back out for 1 or 2 more walks, depending on what time it is. And then we call it a night. I would definitely say having Don Pablos is therapeutic. It's therapeutic because when I come home, I can focus on him and I forget about everything about my day and little irritations on the side. And I can just totally immerse myself in him, and he's just so happy to see me every time I walk in the door. I could be out there for 2 minutes and come in, and he is just excited.
Last year we adopted our puppy Frankie. He came from a puppy mill, and when we got him, he was really small and he had lots of patches of fur missing. He was abused, they told us that, and he is afraid of any new people. Whenever my dad wears a hat, Frankie barks and he goes and hides under the bed because we know he was abused by a man. And then we got our kitty Ginger, she was abused. Yeah. We have 3 cats, we rescued all of them.
And we got our dog Duchess from a puppy mill. She was 9.
Yeah, she was abused too. And Caitlin and I, one day we found a box of kittens on the side of the road, 3 of them, and so we took them home.
They were like
raised them.
3 weeks old, and we were basically their foster parents. Like, we raised them for a good, 5 months maybe?
Longer.
Yeah, and we bottle fed them, and it was just so sad to see them like that.
They had fleas. One of them almost had mange. It was so bad, and they were
Don't
all
they all have loving
beat up.
homes now? Yeah. All the cats have loving homes now, so that's good for us.
Cabby, Owen, and Shelby.
Yeah.
They're really cute.
Since the last time we talked, we got a new addition to our family. This is Lily. And Lily was a puppy that we got from a young lady that was going to school to become a flight attendant and wanted to find a good home for her. And Lily's 5 months old, and she's a Jack Russell Chihuahua mix. She's a little ball of energy and personality, wrapped in a small package. Both her and Don Pablo like to go for long walks in the afternoon, and they both have a dental routine that they do in the morning where they get their teeth brushed and they get cookies, and they both play together all day long.
Well, actually, I started as a child. My whole background has been the movie business. I was the little girl in the Walt Disney movie Old Yeller, and also worked on Shane at Paramount with Alan Ladd. I worked in Hans Christian Andersen with Danny Kaye. I was the little girl that he sang Thumbelina to, and I was the little girl in Superman and the Mole Man. So I got started very young and been fortunate enough to be continuing on to this day. Well, the word animal, you got me right there, because animals are my passion, and I was so honored to be asked to come and talk about this, because my whole life I've just been crazy about animals, and I've always had a dog from the time I was a child, and of course now I've got dogs and cats, and they're all rescues. And I guess my favorite role, well, there's been so many, but I guess I'd have to talk about Old Yeller, because that was the Walt Disney classic movie. And Old Yeller was this wonderful dog, and he actually was a rescue dog. His real name was Spike, And if I remember right, his dressing room was bigger than mine. The really cool thing about Spike is that, you know, they got him out of an animal shelter and trained him. And there was only one of him, obviously. And when they used to film, you know, like Rin Tin Tin and Lassie, they had several German Shepherds and several collies that would do the various scenes. But because Old Yeller, you know, he was a rescue, there was just one of him. So he did the entire movie, and he was just a wonderful dog.
I want you to meet Miss Scarlett. Miss Scarlett is a star of stage, screen, and television. But her life started out kind of on the low end, if you will. Miss Scarlett is a rescue. And when she was a very small puppy, she was chained in the backyard of some people's houses. And she was rescued by two ladies that were compassionate over proper treatment of animals. And they asked me to take her in, and I said I would. She's been with me ever since she was a puppy. And she was at first very shy around people because of her ordeal as a pup. But she's gone on to be in television shows and movies, and she's been on stage a few times. And one of the things Miss Scarlett is quite proud of is that she's made appearances all over the state of Florida at animal fundraising events. So she's done a lot for other animals. But Miss Scarlett is a good example of what you can do for animals if you adopt one. And I can only shudder to think what her life would have been like if she didn't have some human willing to take her in. She probably wouldn't have lasted very long. So she's led a pretty good life, and it just shows you how you can go from rags to riches as a dog. Not too long ago, Miss Scarlett had a little tumor on her hind leg, and it was known as a mast cell tumor, and I had that removed for her. And it's something that boxers are prone to get. And so she had to have a little bit of surgery, and then she had to undergo several weeks of chemotherapy. But it tended to fix her up just fine. She had some wonderful veterinarians, and she's doing real good now. She's cancer-free, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. Well, Miss Scarlett is she's definitely a family member. You know, it's hard to say whether my kids or my animals are take priority. I mean, they're all family members, and so she's treated with care, respect, and love, and what have you, that any other family member would be treated with. And I can tell you that I probably spend more on the veterinarian care of my animals than I do myself.
At times, an animal will take ill and become very sick sometimes, and people need to understand what's going on with that animal. Sometimes the vets can't even quite figure out what's wrong or why something is causing them pain in a certain place, and people call on me to try to uncover what's going on, to let them know if the animal is comfortable with the idea of having surgery, with having the medication that it's on, how it's reacting internally, how it feels from that medicine.
You know, I think as humans, it's only natural for us to fear what we don't understand and don't know. And all I would say is, for both, is just for people to have an open mind and an open heart when approaching, you know, an alternative method of dealing with their beloved animals and pets.
what I get out of being a pet owner, there's something about the feel of fur for me, or feathers, that just can't, there's nothing else like it. I've never been without a pet. I can't imagine being without a pet. And you know, one of my dogs, I have a Newfoundland who's big, 140-pound, gentle giant, and it's kind of fun to go to some of the functions that I go to her with. She's a therapy dog, so she goes into nursing homes and hospitals, and that's of real benefit. But it's really funny to take her into something like a veterinary conference. You've got all these veterinarians and veterinary technicians that have been away from their practices, their pets, for a week, and you walk down the hall with a dog and you're just mobbed because everybody has to feel the fur. They've got to grab the dog, they've got to hug her, they've got to pet her. And you know, there's studies that have been shown it reduces blood pressure, it lengthens lives, all of these things. And it's true, and that's one of the important things about the therapy dog. But it's really interesting to see true pet people, how they respond when they're in withdrawal, for lack of a better term, when they've been denied the pets that they treat on a daily basis.
No one can make any kind of valid argument that the human-canine bond is anything but natural and positive and really fully spiritual. If you don't know that, you don't know dogs, and you've missed out on something truly wonderful in your life. I've owned dogs all my life. People say we don't own them, and I disagree. Our Creator owns us and cherishes us. We own and cherish the gifts He's given us. For me, one of those greatest gifts is the love of dogs and the love of all animals. When I first became disabled with an autoimmune illness, it was very difficult for me to go out in public, even on good days, because I never knew how long the good part would last or how long the bad part would be. I also have a terrible sensitivity to fluorescent lights, and they make me feel weak and disoriented, so just about anywhere you go, you have to deal with that. Going into any kind of shop or public building, it just puts me at a large disadvantage. I've taken dogs into hospitals for many years to visit people that just need company and people that we've never met, but still the dogs have an incredible effect on them. I've seen nurses cry watching a patient talk to one of my dogs and then tell me later that the person hadn't spoken for months, literally months, and yet they'll talk to my dogs. It doesn't surprise me because I understand what these dogs are all about and the communication and the bond, and I've seen it so many times. But even though it doesn't surprise me, it still leaves me in awe. They're amazing creatures. Once you have one that really crawls into your heart, they never leave. Even if it happens many times in your lifetime, they're all still there. If there's any creature that should live forever, it's a dog.
He tells me that he loves me all the time. He doesn't speak with words, but he wags his tail and he gets excited and he does laps and he brings in toys. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with being a pet owner. You can't just put them on a shelf and forget about them. You have to walk them and feed them. I think a responsible pet owner does regular vet visits, and you make sure that your pet is spayed and neutered, because we get a lot of shelter animals that don't have homes and they overpopulate, and it's sad.
Oh, kiss. Yes, that's a good trick. Can you sit? Sit. Paw. Good girl. Yes, it always follows with a kiss. Always follows with a kiss. There we go. You know, pet shop pets very often, unless they're with a rescue group, very often are from puppy mills, kitten mills. There's no attention paid to taking care of the parents of those dogs. They very often wind up having to be rescued themselves. Rescuing a dog, you actually are rescuing too, because by adopting a dog from a shelter, you're freeing up space for another dog to come in. And so you're not just saving one life, you're saving two lives. And the other thing too with a rescue is you have the opportunity to rescue an adult dog like Raven. Raven was a year and 3 months when I got her. She was house trained. She was out of her chewing stage, which is probably one of the reasons why she was put in the shelter to begin with. She had a lot of the
the instincts and the things that you like to train dogs for already, done for us. All she really needed, the finishing touch, was love and attention. And as you can see, she's a wonderful girl. I couldn't live without my dogs. My dogs, my whole routine, my life revolves around my dogs, more so than at this point my children, because my children are older. But every morning I take my dogs to the local dog park, Seymour Memorial Dog Park, for exercise, because I have a bit of a smaller yard and they really like to run and they need the exercise. I work from home for a company called Monster.com and travel quite a bit, but there's always someone home with my dogs, which is great. My husband also works from home, so we always get to spend time with our animals, and they're completely spoiled and loved and just part of the family.
Basically, if you need companionship, look into an animal shelter. Even if you're just not expecting anything, it could be the greatest thing you've ever done. It's where you just will find a relationship you had never even realized. So it goes beyond human relationships sometimes, it's just about making a connection.
There's a lot of good to be said for rescuing pets. If you're looking for a specific pet, then go out and find that specific pet. You may be able to find it at a shelter. You may do better with a breed rescue, or you may do better at a breeder. I know there's a lot of people that would say don't buy breeders, don't proliferate the breeding of dogs and things like that. When I've made a decision that I'm going to buy a pet, I know what I want, and I go looking specifically for that. I look at the lineage of the pet. I look at the sire and the dam. I want to know, where is this pet coming from? I've seen a lot of people, most recently a client rescued a beagle from the Humane Society, and it's been about 6 weeks and about $4,000 worth of vet bills. So know what you're buying, because nothing is going to be more frustrating than falling in love with an animal and finding out that with that comes huge financial investment. Do your homework. Find what you want, and make sure that you can get a good history on the pet. I mean, the Humane Societies are great, rescues are wonderful, and if you have the ability to rescue a pet, by all means. But make sure you know what you're getting yourself into.
I think we live now in what's the first generation that has really somewhat lost its connection with animals, and that's not a natural thing at all. For centuries, people depended on horses for transportation, cats for vermin control, and dogs from everything from livestock management to protection to companionship. Livestock care was taught to children from the time they started to walk. People understood animals as a natural part of their daily lives, and today people get a pet, and too easily they just rely on information from sources that are either based on an anti-pet agenda or some mercenary consideration. Sometimes it's professional-looking organizations that really just don't have a clue, but they're willing to hand out what's really strange advice nonetheless. I've actually heard some of these so-called professionals state that it's unnatural for dogs and cats to possess the reproductive organs they're born with, and that's pretty scary.
Someone who's not home a lot should not adopt a puppy. They need continual, what's the word I'm looking for? They need people continually around them, because they teeth like children, therefore they chew because their jaws hurt or their teeth hurt. People also need to know the breed that they're looking for. Some breeds are for some people and some breeds are just not for people. Jack Russells are wonderful, fun dogs, but they love to run. There are other dogs that are snappy dogs. There are other dogs that don't like to run a lot, and they're kind of couch potatoes, so you need to research the breed of the dog before you want. They don't need to be full-bred dogs. The Humane Societies and the breeders need to be controlled more as to the sanitary conditions, the psychological conditions, and they just need to be controlled to protect the animals.
I actually have 4 dogs right now and 2 cats, and they're all rescues. And I've always liked rescuing dogs because, you know, they have no say. And I mean, all animals need homes, whether they're from breeders or pet shops or wherever they are. It's just so important, I think, to get an animal that's in a shelter, because sadly so many of them are euthanized after so many days. Although it's getting better, there are more and more no-kill shelters, which makes me very happy. But you know, the rescued animals, I swear they just know if you're rescuing them, and because most of them come with a sad story, like they've either been abandoned or lost, or their owners have died, or you know, the people that had them can't keep them anymore due to finances or divorce or whatever the reason. And so these little faces, you know, they have no voice. We're their voice. And makes me get all teary-eyed. I just think it's so important to help these little animals that love you so much. They love you unconditionally, and they don't care if you're, you know, rich or poor, or tall or short, or fat or thin, or black or white, or, you know, they just love you, and they rely on you, they depend on you. And as I said, they don't have a voice. We're their voice. And so I'm just here, and I'm so excited to be able to have this opportunity to encourage people to adopt rescue pets.